and welcome to Vantage this week. If you're too busy to track the news or if you missed some of our episodes, then this show is for you. We're putting together a recap of the week, the biggest stories, the most important newsmakers and the best analysis. We start with how China is trying to derail India's G20 presidency. Reports say Beijing has a problem with India's motto for the G20. Also, will Saudi Arabia and Israel normalize ties? Reports suggest a deal could be happening and it is brokered by the US. In India, Prime Minister Modi defeated a no-trust vote in Parliament. A Japanese warship made a port call at the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. We'll tell you why. In Niger, there is a threat of war. How much do world leaders spend on hair and makeup? And you have to walk 10,000 steps every day to be healthy. We've got a great show lined up for you. Let's begin with China. Every group has fixed roles. You have the funny one, the shy one, the serious one, and then you have the one who spoils all plans. The spoil sport in the group of 20 or G20 is China. Reports say Beijing has a problem with India's motto for the G20. This one, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. It is a Sanskrit phrase derived from the Upanishads. It means the world is one family. Now, you would think it's a non-controversial one. Why wouldn't someone like this? Why wouldn't you like the world to be one family? Well, China doesn't. Reports say they have objected to including it in all outcome documents, like the one released after the finance ministers meet or after the energy ministers meeting or the tourism ministers meeting, all of them. These documents do not mention Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. They only mention an English version of it. One earth, one family, one future. There is one exception though. The foreign ministers meeting document does mention the Sanskrit phrase, and who knows, maybe that's why Chingang lost his job. But jokes aside, what is China's objection? Beijing says Sanskrit is not an official language of the United Nations. The UN has 6 official languages: Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Spanish and Russian. No Indian language is part of it. So China says you can't put Sanskrit on official texts. Letterheads are fine, the G20 website is fine, but on meeting documents, a strict no. What about the other members? Do they also have an objection? Reports say most of them sided with India, and why not? This is argument for argument's sake. Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam is among the oldest philosophies in India. The world needs a dose of it right now. We are fighting wars with other countries, with nature, even with ourselves. So the idea that Earth should be one family is positive. Instead of encouraging it, China is shooting it down. Not surprising though. China has repeatedly tried to derail India's G20 presidency. In the month of May this year, a G20 meeting was held in Jammu and Kashmir. China skipped it. Before that, in the month of March, there was a meeting in Arunachal Pradesh. Again, China skipped it. What reasons did they give? On Kashmir, they said the territory is disputed. As for Arunachal, they claim the state as their own. But this time, the Chinese have outdone themselves. They have objected over language. It's as petty as it gets. So what exactly are they playing at? We can think of 2 possibilities. Number one, an attempt to tarnish India's image. This is India's first ever time presiding over the G20. New Delhi has been promoting it a lot. Plus, this year has been diplomatically very important for India. Some big visits to the US and France, some crucial balancing acts between Russia and the West, and also the presidency of the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. India was the president this year. The G20 is supposed to be the crowning moment, the culmination of everything India has achieved this year. So a successful summit is key for New Delhi. India's image as a bridging power is at stake, and China knows this. If the leaders are unable to agree on a joint statement, it's an embarrassment for India. Possibility number 2, a tit-for-tat move. India has been quietly resisting China's efforts to expand the SCO and BRICS. China wants to turn them into anti-Western blocs. India is unwilling to do that. So could this be retribution? You hurt us in BRICS, we hurt you in the G20. If that is the case, it is petty. This year's G20 was supposed to be about the global south, about issues like climate change and sustainable growth. China is risking all of that for petty politics. And these minor objections could be setting the stage for a bigger one. Xi Jinping skipping the G20 meeting. It's scheduled for September this year. next month. So far, Xi Jinping's travel to India has not been announced. And like it or not, you can't discuss the global south without China. It is home to more than 1.4 billion people. It is the second largest economy in the world. So China's presence is important. They could have used their influence positively to shape the talks. Instead, they're holding the G20 hostage over two Sanskrit words. The big story tonight is a really big story. A few years back, it would have been impossible. But now the impossible is happening. Saudi Arabia and Israel will normalize ties. This is a truce that has been many years in the making. It's being brokered by the US. We've been tracking the meetings and the statements. The signs were very much there. It was more a matter of when. The reports came a few hours back. There's talk of a deal and broad points of convergence. A final agreement is yet to be hammered out, but we are told it is finally happening. Washington and Riyadh have reached an understanding. They have agreed on the key points, the key pillars as they're calling it. Reports say both sides have made big concessions. And this is extremely significant. To understand why, one must first understand their history. Saudi Arabia is an Arab kingdom, the de facto leader of the Muslim world, home to the holiest sites in Islam. Israel is a Jewish state. For the longest time, denied existence by the Muslim world and engaged in multiple wars with its neighbors. So Saudi Arabia and Israel were sworn enemies. The biggest point of contention was Palestine. It's a very complex story, but on a very, very basic level, it's also a fight for land. Palestinians see Israelis as occupiers. Saudi Arabia backs the Palestinian cause. Its troops have fought 2 wars against Israel. But at some point, the sands shifted. Iran became a bigger enemy. The Saudis are a Sunni Muslim kingdom. Iran has Shia majority. They were at loggerheads. Iran and Israel are also enemies. And what's the enemy of your enemy? A potential friend. So Israel and Saudi Arabia began a secret relationship. Now they're making it public, and the matchmaker is America. Under Donald Trump, the US got multiple Arab countries to normalize ties with Israel, and it happened with Saudi Arabia's blessing. They signed what's called the Abraham Accords. In recent months, Washington made another push. There was a series of discussions with Riyadh. The Saudis made some demands. The Americans most likely agreed, which is why they have what they're calling the broad contours of a deal. What are these key pillars? Number 1 is Palestine. Saudi Arabia wants some concessions from Israel on Palestine. Number 2, nuclear reactors. Saudi Arabia wants a civilian nuclear program. The US, we are told, is on board. Number 3, security guarantees. The Saudis want protection from the US. They want America to remain invested in the region, and Washington is apparently willing to discuss it. So those are the key pillars, and this was the first step. Now the process moves to the next stage, which is negotiations. There will be hectic diplomacy. The fine print will be discussed. The specifics will be hammered out. What kind of security guarantees does Riyadh need? What kind of protections will the US provide? And most importantly, what kind of concessions will Israel give to the Palestinians? All of those questions will be answered over the next year. Yes. Reports say the negotiations could take anywhere between 9 to 12 months. Let's now also talk about the concessions that Riyadh is making. The US wants a commitment from the Saudis, a limit on their growing relationship with China. Reports say Washington has asked Riyadh to agree to such limits, to quote-unquote distance itself from Beijing economically and militarily. That's the message from the US to Saudi Arabia. Will they agree though? And to what extent? Again, it all boils down to the negotiations, but America has shown its hand. It wants to contain China in the region. It has a wish list for the Saudis. No Chinese bases in Saudi Arabia, limits on the use of Chinese technology like Huawei, and no yuan for oil purchases. The US could ask Saudi Arabia to price oil exclusively in the US dollar. And those are some sweeping demands, but that's the price that America could impose on the kingdom. We're given to understand that the Crown Prince is in no hurry to push this through. Reports say Mohammed bin Salman spoke to his advisors and he has told them that there is no rush. The kingdom wants to see what Israel brings to the table, especially on the issue of Palestine. And that's the big hurdle for this deal, the trickiest part. Israel and its hardline government. Apparently, Riyadh wants to see a gesture from Tel Aviv, something that leads to a future Palestinian state, if not a commitment, at least a good faith gesture, something to secure Palestinian interests? And that's a big ask. Will Prime Minister Netanyahu agree? Is he in a position to agree? Reports say he will not make any significant concessions, but he is willing to offer a modest compromise. He doesn't really have a lot of elbow room here. Netanyahu is tied by the demands and politics of his coalition partners. They won't give him a free hand. And their politics does not allow any concessions for Palestine. So the road ahead is going to be very tough. And yet, the broad deal is a big step, a starting point on the road to normalization. This could change, like I said, the politics and the power equations of West Asia. It would mark the return of America in the game. Each side knows what it wants. The challenge now is to find middle ground. And staying with India, Prime Minister Modi faced a no-trust vote today. He sailed through easily, but the process itself is very consequential. A no-trust vote is moved to remove the government from power, to topple them. But how did things come to that? And how does a no-trust vote happen? We'll explain in the next couple of minutes. The monsoon session of India's parliament is currently underway, but very little work has been done. And why is that? Because of what's happening in Manipur. The opposition wanted a statement from the Prime Minister. They wanted him to speak on the violence. When that did not happen, they moved a no-confidence motion. It was proposed by the Congress party on the 26th of July. Now, this motion has two conditions. One, it can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha, which is the lower house of India's parliament. And two, a minimum of 50 members must support it, 50 members. If not, the motion will not be accepted. In this case, the opposition had the required numbers. So the no-confidence motion was introduced. That's the first step. The second step is the debate. Lawmakers from the opposition and the government will speak. So will the Prime Minister. India's constitution says the Prime Minister is the head of the government. So when MPs move a no-confidence motion, he or she must speak. It's a legal obligation. The PM has to speak when there is a no-confidence motion. This debate can go on for hours or days. The one in 2018 lasted around 12 hours. The one in 2003 lasted 21 hours. And how long did this one last? Well, the Speaker had set aside 12 hours. Today, it was Prime Minister Modi's turn to speak. Listen to what he said on Manipur.
महिलाओं के साथ गंभीर अपराध हुआ और ये अपराध अक्षम्य है और दोषियों को कड़ी से कड़ी सजा दिलवाने के लिए केंद्र सरकार, राज्य सरकार मिलकर के भरपूर प्रयास कर रही है और मैं देश के सभी नागरिकों को आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं कि जिस प्रकार से प्रयास चल रहे हैं, निकट भविष्य में शांति का सूरज जरूर उगेगा। मणिपुर फिर एक बार नए आत्मविश्वास के साथ आगे बढ़ेगा। मैं मणिपुर के लोगों से भी आग्रहपूर्वक कहना चाहता हूं, वहां की माताओं, बहनों, बेटियों से कहना चाहता हूं, देश आपके साथ है।
Now, today was day 3 of the proceedings. Yesterday, Home Minister Amit Shah spoke for nearly 2 hours. He detailed the situation in Manipur. Opposition leader Rahul Gandhi also spoke yesterday. He accused the government of being complicit in the violence. So put together, more than a dozen MPs spoke. The final statement was the Prime Minister, sort of like a reply to the motion. He spoke for 2 hours and 13 minutes today. 2 hours, 13 minutes. Many of the opposition MPs staged a walkout during his speech. After everyone spoke, it was time to vote. The current government has a comfortable majority in parliament. The BJP, which is the Prime Minister's party, has 301 lawmakers. Their allies have 31. And what is the majority mark? 270 based on the current occupancy. So the motion was never expected to succeed. And that's also what happened today. The no-confidence motion was defeated in a voice vote. In fact, it's never succeeded, not once in history. This was the 28th no confidence motion in India's Lok Sabha. All of them have failed, all 28 of them. Governments have lost floor tests in the past, but they have never lost no trust votes. Prime Minister Modi faced a similar test in 2018 as well. Back then, he got the support of 330 MPs. So if no confidence motions never succeed, why do parties bother? To send a political message. It's about checks, not threats. It also offers the parliament an opportunity to debate a wide range of issues. You see, the motion was introduced because of Manipur. But once introduced, everything is on the table. MPs can talk about any issue in the country. The Prime Minister did that today. He mentioned how global agencies have praised India's growth model, but the opposition remains in denial. He also had some taunts for the opposition. Listen to this.
मैंने 2018 में उनको काम दिया था कि 2023 में आप अविश्वास प्रस्ताव लेकर, और मेरी बात मानी उन्होंने। लेकिन मुझे दुख इस बात का है कि 18 के बाद 23 में 5 साल मिले थे, थोड़ा अच्छा करते, अच्छे ढंग से करते, लेकिन तैयारी बिल्कुल नहीं थी, कोई इनोवेशन नहीं था, कोई क्रिएटिविटी नहीं थी, न मुद्दे खोज पा रहे थे। पता नहीं ये देश को इन्होंने बहुत निराश किया है राष्ट्र। चलिए कोई बात नहीं, 2028 में हम फिर से मौका देंगे। आईएमएफ ने भारत के डीबीटी के और दूसरे हमारे सोशल वेलफेयर स्कीम के लिए आईएमएफ ने इसे कहा है, ये लॉजिस्टिकल मार्वल है। आदरणीय अध्यक्ष जी, WHO ने कहा है, आदरणीय अध्यक्ष जी, वर्ल्ड हेल्थ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ने कहा है कि जल जीवन मिशन के जरिए भारत में 4 लाख लोगों की जान बच रही है। ये 4 लाख कौन है? तो मेरे गरीब, पीड़ित, शोषित, वंचित परिवारों के मेरे स्वजन है।
India's politics is certainly heating up. Next year, of course, is the big test. The country will be holding its general elections in April 2024, and that will be the real trust vote. When I say Andaman and Nicobar Islands, what comes to mind? If you're an Indian, I can guess. A remote chain of islands, beautiful beaches, maybe even water sports. But what about marine warfare? Just last week, a Japanese destroyer visited Port Blair. That's the capital of Andaman and Nicobar. The military leaders held talks. The sailors, meanwhile, had a nice time of football and some yoga. Last month, another warship was in town, the French frigate Lorraine. The vessel made a port call at Port Blair, which begs the question, why the sudden interest in Andaman and Nicobar? To understand that, we must look at the geography. Andaman and Nicobar is an archipelago. It has 572 islands. The northernmost is close to Myanmar. The southernmost is close to Indonesia. It straddles 2 important oceans, the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. It is also close to a very important choke point, the Malacca Strait. This strip of water between Malaysia and Indonesia, this is the Malacca Strait. And why is it important? Because ships heading to China pass through here. Most of them carry oil. Around 80% of China's oil imports go via Malacca. You strangle Malacca, you strangle China. That's how it works. Which is why Andaman and Nicobar is so important. It is almost 1,200 kilometers away from mainland India, but that distance is the biggest advantage. From Andaman, you can keep tabs on Malacca. You can project military power. You can also run supply and reconnaissance missions. So the strategic value is huge. Why then did India never use it? Because it was never really necessary. China's Indian Ocean ambitions emerged in the last decade. They began sending fishing boats, patrols and submarines. In 2016, China built a military base in Djibouti. That's on the other side of the Indian Ocean, in the Horn of Africa. The next year, in 2017, they got the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. Suddenly, China was all around us. That's when New Delhi began realizing the potential of Andaman and Nicobar. So what are they doing about it? The first priority is to improve the infrastructure. The Navy has an air station on this island called Campbell Bay. It has a 3,500 feet long runway. It is now being upgraded to 10,000 feet. You can't operate bigger planes without long runways. In January, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh was at this air station. He reviewed the upgrade progress. A second runway is also being built, another 10,000 feet one in the southern islands. These new runways will be crucial to hosting military planes. In 2020, a US aircraft landed there for refueling, a surveillance plane called P-8 Poseidon. It was the first such mission on Andaman and Nicobar. Some Indian assets are also deployed there, like the Sukhoi fighter jets and the Jaguar planes. In many ways, Andaman is perfect for the job. It is the only place in India with a joint command. And what does that mean? All three services of Indian military operate under a single leadership there. The Army, the Navy, the Air Force. All these assets report to a single command. In the mainland, that's not the case. Each service reports to its own leadership. Experts say joint commands are better in the long run. There is more synergy, more clarity. Andaman and Nicobar already has that. This year, a major joint military exercise was held there. It involved the Army, the Navy, the Air Force and the Coast Guard. So the thought process is right, and it's not just military investments. Civilian infrastructure is also getting a boost. The government says it has invested 30,000 crore rupees in the last decade in Andaman and Nicobar. The plan is to invest another 10,000 crores. A transshipment hub, an international airport, a solar power plant are all in the works. Other countries are also investing, by the way. Japan, for example, is funding a power project. Quick side note, Tokyo actually captured Andaman and Nicobar in 1942. This was during the Second World War. They realized the strategic importance even then, 1942. Almost 80 years later, the world is also realizing the same thing. They're calling Andaman and Nicobar an unsinkable carrier, a formidable outpost to counter China. But words alone are not enough. The islands need major military upgrades to serve such a purpose. More military assets, more surveillance tech, more infrastructure. If not, it's a waste of strategic value. The threat of war looms over Niger. Leaders of West Africa held a crucial meeting on Thursday. Their big decision was this: the ECOWAS standby force will be activated. It's like their peacekeeping army. Now, the ECOWAS is a regional bloc in West Africa. It has 15 members, and it has been asking the coup leaders to step down. It's been asking them to reinstate the ousted president of Niger, and the leaders had set a deadline for last weekend. Step down or face military action, that's what they said. The deadline expired, but nothing happened. So this time they're sending a stronger message. They have activated their standby force. Listen to the ECOWAS president.
And you will see from the communique of this extraordinary summit that no option is taken off the table, including the use of force as a last resort.
Direct the Committee of the Chief of Defense Staff to activate the ECOWAS standby force with all its elements immediately. Order the deployment of the ECOWAS standby force to restore constitutional order in the Republic of Niger.
It is a strong statement, but it's also a confusing one. ECOWAS is saying that force is the last resort. At the same time, they've decided to activate and deploy standby forces. You can see how it's confusing. Does activation mean mobilization? If yes, then what does deployment mean? And just to be clear, ECOWAS does have a history of military interventions. In 1990, they deployed soldiers to Liberia. The objective was to end a civil war. In 1997, they intervened in Sierra Leone. The West African troops drove out the military junta there. They reinstated the ousted president. In 2003, they deployed troops to the Ivory Coast. A military rebellion had cut the country into two, so ECOWAS got involved. In 2013, they sent soldiers to Mali. The mission was to retake the northern parts controlled by Islamists. So interventions are not new for them. ECOWAS has done it before. Why are they hesitating this time, though? Because the bloc is divided. There are military regimes in Mali and Burkina Faso too. They support the junta in Niger. Plus, the economic situation is bad. There is already a food crisis in Western Africa. The last thing they need is another war. Having said that, such flip-flops will affect the credibility of ECOWAS. First, they set a deadline for military intervention. That expired. Then they talked about prioritizing diplomacy. Again, failure. And now they have activated the standby force. Frankly, it looks like ECOWAS is running out of options. Where does that leave Niger? The coup leaders have refused to back down. They took power saying they can handle terrorism better. But now the argument has changed. The junta keeps accusing France of destabilizing the country. It's a popular narrative in Niger. It was a French colony in the last century, so blaming France is a popular strategy. But the question is, will it work? Recent examples will embolden the military. There was a military coup in Mali in 2021. The junta is still in power there. Last year, there was a coup in Burkina Faso. Again, the junta could not be removed. So diplomatic pressure has not worked in the past, and the military option appears too costly. The Niger junta is counting on that. They're using the same template as Mali and Burkina Faso. Hold your ground, blame France, and weather the storm. Meanwhile, the ousted president is in fact in more trouble. His name is Mohamed Bazoum. He's been under house arrest since the coup. Reports say the junta has cut food and water supplies to him. The U.S. has voiced concerns about his health.
We have deep concern for him, for his family, for his security and well-being. We've also made clear to the military leaders that we will hold them responsible for his safety and well-being.
Mohamed Bazoum was a Western ally. His ouster is a big setback to the United States and its partners. They needed Niger for stability in West Africa, for anti-terror operations, for development projects, and of course for resources. So with the junta, all of that goes out of the window. What is the West doing about it? They have put their weight behind ECOWAS. And what's crucial to note is this: the support is not conditional on a diplomatic settlement. It is a blanket support to the West African bloc. I guess that includes military intervention as well. Listen to Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
ECOWAS, the organization that brings together West African countries, is playing a lead role in making clear the imperative of the return to constitutional order, and we very much support ECOWAS's leadership and work on this.
The West would very much like to see the junta out, but within Niger, opinion is split. Military leaders have promised the people a lot: a crackdown on terrorism, end to French intervention, more prosperity. It's attractive in a country like Niger. Around 41% of their population lives in extreme poverty. It's fertile ground for coups. But the challenge before ECOWAS is this: if you let one coup slide, more will happen. Just look at the last 3 years. First Mali, then Burkina Faso, and now Niger. You cannot legitimize such power grabs by the military. If you do, you set a precedent. At the same time, it's important to understand why they happen. France's neo-colonial interventions certainly have not helped. All three countries I mentioned are former French colonies. Coincidence? I don't think so. Nowhere do people like military coups. So if they're splitting public opinion instead of galvanizing them, questions need to be asked. What makes a good politician? Policies, yes. Oratory, yes. But what about looks? For the longest time, leaders were supposed to look ordinary, like an average Joe. But that's not the case anymore. Today's politicians are splurging on hair and makeup, and the bills are eye-wateringly big. Germany has released some numbers. Their government has spent $68,000 on Chancellor Olaf Scholz's hair and makeup. $68,000, that's around 56 lakh Indian rupees on hair and makeup. We have 4 months left in this year, so expect that bill to increase even more. Now, hair and makeup is just one part of it. The total expenditure is much higher, around $1.6 million in 2022. Imagine that, $1.6 million for makeup, hairdressers and photographers. Now, before you ask, this is for the entire German government, not just Olaf Scholz. But still, it's a big number. Even Angela Merkel's makeup bill is borne by the government. She retired from politics in 2021. Since then, guess how much money Germany has spent on her makeup? Around $60,000. Private events, public events, it doesn't matter. The German government picked up the tab. What do the people make of this? The German Taxpayers Association has criticized the bills. They said it should be at a bare minimum, and yet nothing has changed. In fact, the bills are rising even more. The German government's makeup bill was 80% higher in 2022, 80% higher in 2022 compared to 2021. And Germany is not alone in this trend. World leaders apparently love their makeup. French President Emmanuel Macron is one example. He was elected to office in 2017. In the first 3 months, listen to this, he spent $30,000 on his makeup. That's around 19 lakh rupees in 3 months. So the next time you see Macron's youthful, wrinkle-free face, remember this, it costs $30,000. The whole thing triggered a backlash. Macron ended up promising to cut his makeup budget. His predecessor spent even more. That's François Hollande. He used to pay his hairdresser $10,000 per month. It's bad enough for most people. Even worse if you're a socialist leader. Donald Trump did something similar. He spent around $10,000 for makeup for his inauguration. But I must say, Trump got a better deal. He got makeup for himself and 20 of his aides. Ireland too had a makeup-savvy leader, Bertie Ahern. He was Prime Minister from 1997 to 2008. His makeup bill was released in 2006, around $100,000 for 4 years. In fact, Bertie Ahern was called the L'Oreal Prime Minister. We tried to find numbers in India as well. I'm sure you're thinking about those. Unfortunately, there is no public record. But the bigger question is this: why do leaders do this? Why do they spend tens of thousands of dollars on makeup? I'm sure the reasons are different for everyone, but press coverage is a common one. You have high-definition cameras following you. They can capture everything, a wrinkle on your face, a strand of gray hair, a pimple, all of it. So makeup is the only way to appear perfect, to look youthful on television. If you don't, the cameras will spot it. Look at what happened with Joe Biden earlier this year. People noticed some odd marks on his face, and immediately questions were raised. The White House had to clarify that the president uses a sleep apnea machine. Maybe Biden needed a makeup artist to cover it up. And let's be clear here, makeup is not the problem. People are free to use cosmetic products or employ hairdressers. It's their choice. The problem is, who pays for it? It's one thing to pay for a leader's motorcade or housing. It's another to pay for their makeup, especially when the bills are so high. In the US, women spend around $15,000 on makeup. That's over a lifetime. $15,000 in Indian money, it's around 12 lakh rupees. But some world leaders are spending as much in months. So clearly, it is excessive. We do need active and caring politicians. For that, taxpayers will pick up the tab. But if they want to splurge on looks, I'm afraid it's BYOM, bring your own makeup. "10,000 steps a day." It's touted as the minimum for good health. It has long become a default fitness goal, so much so that it birthed a whole industry. An industry worth about $20 billion. It's filled with fitness trackers, smartphone apps, even wellness programs. But do you follow this number religiously? Do you walk 10,000 steps every day? Probably not. How do we know? Because we have the numbers. Indians typically walk around 4,300 steps in a day. Americans, 4,800 steps. The Japanese take 7,000 steps. Australians and Swiss nationals come close. They take some 9,000 steps. This is the average. So chances are you're not clocking in 10,000 steps every day. But there is no need to feel discouraged. I'll let you in on a secret. 10,000 steps is a myth. The number to stay healthy is far lower than that. Let alone half of 10,000, even 2,000 steps are good for you. But if that's the case, why is the world being told otherwise? Blame murky historical roots. Let's take you back to the year 1965. That's when a Japanese company launched a pedometer. You know the instrument that records the number of steps taken? It estimates the distance traveled on foot. This Japanese pedometer was called 10,000 step meter. It also came with a slogan, let's walk 10,000 steps a day. What fun. And hence we had the magic number, 10,000 steps. It became trendy. It gave people a distant, sweaty goal, the goal of a fit and healthy body. It became part of everyday conversations, even corporate team building exercises. But you see, this goal is not based in a scientific study. It originated in marketing, not medicine. So what does medicine say? How many steps should you walk in a day? A new global study is out now. It was conducted by the Medical University of Lords and the Johns Hopkins University. It shows that 2 to 5,000 steps, in fact, are beneficial. About 2,300 steps is enough to benefit the heart and blood vessels. At 4,000 steps, the risk of dying prematurely of any cause starts reducing. And with every extra 1,000 steps after 4,000, the risk of dying early reduces by 15%. So basically, there is no one number. The more you walk, the more health benefits you get. This applies to people of all genders, ages, and countries. Such betrayal, right? All this time, people were beating themselves up for walking lesser than 10,000 steps. Some say they don't even bother going for a walk, assuming they won't reach the magic number, so what's the point? But with this study, it's clear that there is a point. Walking 10,000 steps definitely helps, but so does every little bit of walking. It's about small snippets of movement throughout the day, like walking from one room to another or getting up from your desk to get coffee. They all add up to make a difference. Let me show you how. Walking lowers blood pressure, strengthens muscles, protects bones, increases energy levels, boosts happy hormones like endorphins, and this benefits mental health. The best part is, walking is for everyone because it is low impact and easy on the joints. But walking is not the only light exercise that helps. I'm talking about non-exercise activities, meaning simple tasks that use energy, like carrying shopping bags, washing the floor, pacing while talking on the phone. It's ironic, but think of exercising as eating your favorite food. Even a little is good, but more is always better. After all, insufficient physical activity is responsible for more than 3 million deaths every year. It's the 4th most frequent cause of death worldwide. Not enough physical activity. It increases the risk of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and several cancers. And yet people do not exercise enough, and the numbers agree. 1 in 4 adults and 4 out of 5 adolescents do not get enough physical activity. Now, exercising may seem daunting. There is rarely enough time or energy to get started, but remember that good health can be a sum of the small movements. Movement in any form should not be underestimated. So set a goal that works for you. Find your own sweet spot of step count, or throw out your tracker entirely, but just get moving.